أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. فقد قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألف لام را كتاب أنزلناه إليك لتخرج الناس من الظلمات إلى النور بإذن ربهم إلى صراط العزيز الحميد. Recite the second salawat, please. How's the volume? Can everybody hear me good? Yeah? So recite the third salawat, inshallah. And let's recite the fourth salawat in the honor of Imam al-Hussein, Imam Zain al-Abidin, Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba, and all the shuhada and the martyrs of Karbala, inshallah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And let's recite your fifth salawat and your loudest salawat in the honor of Imam of Time, Imam al-Asr wa Zaman, Ajjalallah ta'ala farajahu sharif. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All thanks to Allah for giving us this bounty, these blessings, this ni'mah, to actually be part of the commemoration and this mourning of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein on such a beloved night as we are approaching and getting closer and closer to the day of Arba'in. Those who have actually had a chance let's recite one more salawat, please. So alhamdulillah, we would like to praise our Lord, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for giving us this chance to actually be part of this commemoration move of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein as we are getting closer and closer to the day of Arba'in. Those who had had a chance to actually make this ziyarah on the day of Arba'in, they know what's happening as we get closer and closer to that day. Every day you hear, every day you look at your friends, every day you look at the people around you, you see new peoples are coming up and getting that visa and getting ready and prepared to make that trip, make that ziyarah, to go all the way to Iraq and participate in that march. So what is it so special? What is it so unique? What is it so magnificent about the movement of Abu Abdullah Hussein that it continues to grow every year and every year? I mean, no kidding aside, when you look at the news, you see that every year more people and more people are getting informed about the move of Abu Abdullah Hussein. Actually, as one of the signs of the end times, they say this is one of the signs of it, right? That most of the people, they actually get informed about Imam al-Hussein. So what's within this move of Abu Abdullah Hussein that makes it so unique? Because we have at least 12 Imams. How come the movement of Abu Abdullah Hussein is the one that continues to grow day by day, continues to grow hour by hour? It continues to grow, no matter who hears it, whether they be Muslim, whether they be Shia, or whether they be like Christians, Jews, even non-believers. They still benefit from the movement of Imam al-Hussein. What makes it so unique, right? And what makes it so unique for him that no other Imams were able to do the same thing given their time and circumstances in which they actually lived? So the topic which I have chosen for this couple of nights, that inshallah, if Allah gives us the tawfiq to be part of this program, will be to have this small analysis of perhaps understanding what were the philosophies behind Abu Abdullah Hussein's move, number one. And number two, what made it so much unique in a sense that it continues to grow? Because usually when we speak of a movement, right, it has an expiration date, right? It starts from one time, but then it always has an ending time. But for the movement of Abu Abdullah Hussein, no, as I mentioned, it continues to grow. So this shows that there is something different within this move that we cannot find it in any other moves as we speak of, right? And that's why we call it alive, right? This definition of something being live in terms of religion stuff is a little bit different than the definition that we may give as we are like, doing our own like daily calculations. What do I mean? For example, when people talk about a person being alive, what do they look for? If the heart is beating, if the person is functioning all their daily stuff, if they're going to work, if they're going to school, if they're good parents, right? If they're good children to the parents. Once they see these activities coming out from a person, they call them a live person. But when we take this concept of being live, and then we take a look at the Quranic teachings, right? We find a different definition, right? We find a different perspective, we find a different base of arguments when it comes to understanding from what's the meaning of live taken from the ayahs of the Quran. And that's the unique character in which we can find in all the moves of all of our immaculate imams, especially Abu Abdullah Hussein alayhi salatu wassalam. Now, why this topic? What's the whole reason behind all of this gathering and march in Arba'in? What's the reason for going for the ziyarat of Arba'in? Everybody has heard the famous narration that it's one of the signs of the Shias, right? To perform and do the ziyarat of Arba'in. But this committing and going for the ziyarat of Arba'in, it has, again, a reason within it, right? It's not only just to participate in this march, right? It's to be part of this move, this growing movement, right? So if you want to become part of this growing movement, we have to learn how we can actually help and how can we be part of this, growing movement in order to actually make it even grow even more, right? So the very first step is to learn what is it that makes it growing so fast and so rapidly without any expiration date, right? So that's why we have to go back. We have to go back to the roots of the movement of Ashura. I'm sure everybody has read so many books, so many historical books, so many analytical books, right, about the reason behind why Imam al-Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam made that uprising and went against the Khalifa of his time, Yazid la'natullah alayh. But let me give you a little bit different perspective in a sense, right? If you go back to the time of Abu Abdullah Hussein, there are so many questions that actually focuses on the society of the Muslims of that time, right? Let me give you a couple of those questions. We know when Imam al-Hussein made his move, at the end, he ended up with, give or take, 150 people, right? A couple of years later, when Abdullah ibn Zubayr made the move, right? He had something close to 8,000 soldiers, some say 10,000, some say 12,000, right? And they were all sworn by their life to protect Abdullah ibn Zubayr against the same Khalif who is Yazid. So what made it different than when the grandson of Rasulullah makes a move, right? Give or take about 150 people stand by. But when Abdullah ibn Zubayr makes the same movement from Mecca, right? At least 10,000 people, they pay their allegiance by their life to stand by him and defend him against the Khalif of the time. All right? The same question happens, what happens when Imam al-Hussein, we say he's the grandson of Rasulullah, right? When he goes against the Khalif of time, when we look at his sermons, when we look at his words, we see that most of his sermons, he's talking about his lineage. He's introducing himself to the society. Why is that? We know back in the days, the Medina was not that big of a city. Everybody knew each other basically, right? It was a small community in terms of the number of the people. So everybody knew Imam al-Hussein. Why would Imam al-Hussein go out and constantly focus on this topic of introducing himself as the son of Amir al-Mu'minin, as the son of Lady Fatima al-Zahra, as the grandson or the son of Rasulullah? So there has to be a reason, right? Because we say Imam is ma'asum. Everything he does, everything he says, everything he approves has a reason for it. So why would Imam al-Hussein go out and constantly talk to the people? By introducing himself. Was there something, or is it like a piece of puzzle that we're missing here, right? The other question, the third question is that we say Imam al-Ma'sum has this divine knowledge given to them. This knowledge that is not seekable. We go to school, we go to classes, K1 through K12, right? Then inshallah we do some Islamic studies on the side. Little by little we learn a little bit about Islam. But we know Imam, especially Imam al-Ma'sum, right, has this knowledge given to them in a form of the divine matters, right? Meaning that there is no flaws in it, absolutely flawless, right? So if the knowledge is there, if the people knew who was Imam al-Hussein, how come we have so many or so few of narrations from Abu Abdullah Hussein, right? At the very same time, people had questions about their fiqh, about their jurisprudence, about their history, about their beliefs, about their ethics. But how come we don't have any reports of this being reported in the history? So when we put all this together, right, we have to look at the other elements as well, right? Basically, we have to take a look at what Muawiyah was doing for more than 20 plus years, right? In one point, if I want to make it very small and short, conclusion out of this, he did such a thing that this position, this status of the Ahlul Bayt was actually gone completely out of the picture. Meaning that people did not recognize them as the elites of the society. Yes, they knew them as someone who were pious in a sense. Someone who were doing a lot of prayers, right? Someone who would do a lot of donations. But in terms of being a religious figures, a lot of people did not believe in the Ahlul Bayt, right? And a lot of it comes from what Muawiyah did, and it goes back, it has a roots, it has a very interesting base of argument in which we can actually see it even today as we speak of, right? It goes where? It goes to this understanding of what Imam actually means. What do I mean again? It's like when we go back to the early of Islam, once again we have to picture this one. A lot of people, they became Muslim just because, for example, their tribe members or their tribe chief would become a Muslim, right? One tribe chief would become a Muslim, then all of a sudden the entire tribe would convert and embrace Islam. So this topic of who is the Imam, who is the Prophet, and all of this different, different parts of this topic of Imamate was not even discussed, right? They were just following the lead of their leaders. If they would become Muslims, they would say, oh, we are Muslims as well. As Islam grew up, grew a little bit more, a lot of people were joining in because of the power that Islam had, right? So again, this discussion never took place, right? So we can say, if you take it at the highest possible, possibility, right? All they thought about Imamat was basically this simple line of saying, oh, Imamat is another form of ruling, another form of kingdom, right? We have kings and we have imams. We have, for example, presidents and we have imams. So when you look at the imam, they're just another king. They're there just to take care of the political affair of the society, right? The only difference is this is the son of the Rasulullah and that one is the son of Allah knows who, right? So that's how they were actually looking at the imamate, right? And to give you proof, that's what I actually mentioned a little bit earlier. When we take a look at the questions that was raised, right? We have this one incident that one of the new Muslims, he comes to actually raise a question, and Imam al-Hussein is sitting there, and Ibn Abbas is sitting right next to him. So this guy comes up and he raises the question to Ibn Abbas while Imam al-Hussein is present right there and sitting right there. Now Abu Abdullah al-Hussein actually answers him, right? Because Ibn Abbas, he knows, so he doesn't answer. Imam al-Hussein answers, right? But when Imam al-Hussein actually replies to the question, this new Muslim, he becomes angry. And he actually raises this phrase. He says, I did not ask you, Abu Abdullah. I asked from Ibn Abbas. What does this indicate? This indicates that, this position of imamat, this acceptance of imamat was not there. They were just looking at the imams as part of the community, nothing more. And all of this comes from where? Comes from all of these tactful strategies of basically Muawiyah. For how many years he was brainwashing the people, the society, right? And especially after taking over the Khilafah, right? After the peace treaty that he signed with Imam al-Hasan al-Mujtaba, then he was going at it with full force, right? And he was setting the stage so well that Abu Abdullah al-Hussein absolutely had no chance of uprising against Muawiyah in his time. Because the minute he would do so, easily Muawiyah would have done the very same thing that he did to his brother Imam al-Hasan al-Mujtaba. He would easily get rid of Imam al-Hussein, and on the very same day he would put on this black shirts and start mourning for Imam al-Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam. Because as we all know, Muawiyah was very tactful. Opposite of him, Yazid. Yazid was exactly opposite, right? He had all the negative characters of Muawiyah, right? And the biggest challenge was he had no politics in his actions. He was out in the public, right? He would do whatever he desires right out in the public. They say he could not even go in any of the majalis that he had. in any of the like sessions that he had, without having some musicians or without having some dancers or without having some like animals being presented like at his palace. And these are something that we know is contrary to the principles of Islam, right? He was known as being constantly drunk, right? So someone who's drunk, how is his intellect is going to work? So we see the circumstance was different, right? The people didn't know who are the imams. They didn't understand what the topic of imamate was. That was number one. The Khalif now had become this person who was was coming out openly, and he was talking about in contradiction to the principles of Islam, right? So then we see this shift of momentum, right? Between what? Between the true values of Islam to the false values of Islam. As Abu Abdullah al-Hussein himself mentions it, right? He says the time has changed. What was good has become bad. If you do good, you'll actually become ashamed of doing good. If you do bad, you become proud of it, right? As if like all the values has become upside down. In a sense, lying was good. In a sense, stealing was good. In a sense, going after dunya was good. But becoming like ascetic person or giving up on the dunya was something very bad and very strange. Just to give you a couple more examples, right? We all know our fourth Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salatu wassalam. He is known as Sayyid al-Sajidin, right? They say he worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so much and for such a long time that every 6 months they had to remove some of the extra skin that he would grow on his forehead, right? Those who do a lot of sujood, they have a mark, right? When they do even more, this mark becomes stronger and stronger. It grows extra skins, so they have to remove those, right? Imam Zain al-Abidin, he was doing so much worshipping, right, that they had to remove the extra skin of his forehead every 6 months. Such a person, imagine that, right? So he goes to Hajj. On his journey to Hajj, two of the Muslim brothers, they say, oh, Imam Zain al-Abidin, we want to join you. And of course, they didn't look at the Imam Zain al-Abidin as Imam. They said, oh, we just want to join you because we want to learn or we want to participate in this journey of Hajj. So if it's me or if it's someone else, they try to take the most advantage of the Imam. They ask all the questions, they make sure everything is right? As we all go on the caravans, right? But what happens, they start their journey from Medina towards Mecca, right? And then on the way from Medina to Mecca, right? Once you start the Hajj, you become Musafir. We all know once you become Musafir, your namaz, your salat becomes Ghasr. It becomes like, it becomes half basically, your salat is Zuhr, your salat, your noon and afternoon prayer. So as they're going, from place to place, they spot Imam Zain al-Abidin that, he's praying only 2 rak'at for noon and afternoon, right? But they never raised the question of why our fourth Imam, the Ali ibn al-Hussein, is praying 2 rak'at instead of 4 rak'at. And in contrary, they were doing 4 rak'ats instead of 2 rak'ats. And they were doing the nawafil. Because we know once we start a journey for the ziyarah, for the hajj, or for all of this stuff, usually people do a lot more for that given specific of time, right? They try to do the most that they can. So they pray more, they recite Quran more, they fast, they do donations. They become, mashallah, the perfect Muslims, right? For that specific period of time. So here we have an interesting story. Imam al-Sajjad, he's doing his prayer qasr with all the signs that I mentioned, that he was known as Sayyid al-Sajidin, not only among the Shias, but only among all the Muslims, right? And these two Muslim brothers, right, they were doing their prayers in full. After a couple of stops that they make, finally occurs to them that maybe there's something wrong here. But it's interesting again, they don't go to Imam al-Sajjad to ask him the question. They go and they ask one of the person who was known as the jurist, as the faqih of the time, and they say, this is the problem that we have. We're going for the Hajj, now we're praying our prayer in full, but, and they actually use this term, they say this Ali ibn al-Hussein, he's praying in half. Why is this? Again, indicating that people had absolutely no idea of what the position of imamat was. Now, where does this happen, right? How do people get to this stage that they do not understand what the imamat means? What's the meaning of being a custodian of religion, right? Because logically thinking about it, like common sense, every religion, right, has a start and it has a person which carries it through, right? Otherwise it will end, right? And that's the beauty. That's the beauty of every religion. and it was the same for Christianity, it was the same for Judaism, right? So in Islam, we have the same concept. But this position of imamah, this topic of being custodian of religion was completely forgotten. Why? It goes back, it goes back. We say everything starts from one, trigger. And that's how actually shaitan works too. We have this very interesting hadith in which it says, shaitan has different ways of getting to people, right? But there are three things that when he does that to a person, right, he gives up completely on that person. He says, okay, this guy, he's going down the hill by himself. I don't have to do any more investment on him. He just leaves him be, just like that. Number one thing he does, he goes to him and he makes sure that, he starts like illusioning in a sense. He starts seeing everything that he or she does as something more and better than what it actually is, right? For 1 week I come to Majlis of Imam al-Hussein, right? The shaitan comes after you. It's like, wow, for 1 week you were good. Every day, 1 hour, 1 hour and a half, you went to the Majlis of Imam al-Hussein. You cried for Imam al-Hussein. You helped out that Saba community. Wow, mashallah, now you must be very close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So now you're so close, right? It's okay, if you don't do your prayer, it's okay. Allah is the Arhamur Rahimin. He's going to forgive you, right? This happens. Or no, for 1 week, we do all the prayers in time, right? Again, shaitan comes up. It's like, you have done your prayers for a whole week in time, right? Now, why should you go and help out the other people at Saba? Let other people take care of it. I'm so good, I'm so high, I'm so better, right? That I'm not gonna help out with the daily stuff at Saba. It's it's too down for me to actually come and, for example, vacuum the carpets of the Majlis of Imam Hussein, for example. This is the number one thing shaitan does. He comes up to us, he takes our good deeds, right? And he represents them back to us in a bigger version. To the point that we start feeling this arrogance within ourselves for something good that we have done, right? Sometimes we do something bad and we feel arrogance. That's completely out of this discussion. Now I'm talking about when we do something good and we feel good about it, right? They said this is where you have to be very careful. If you do something good and you feel good about it, you always have to raise this question. Did I do this good thing for the sake of Allah? Or did I do this good thing for the sake of myself, right? If I do this salat, right, and I do everything perfect, from the recitation, from pronunciation, from all the different ahkam of the salat, I do a perfect salat, right? Then I feel good about it, and I say, Alhamdulillah, I did 100% perfect salat, right? When we look at the ethical, ulama, they say right here, draw the line. The minute you start feeling that, oh, I did something good, I did something very well, I did something perfect, immediately draw the line, right? Differentiate. Is your intention, is your niyyat, was it for yourself or was it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? It becomes very thorough, Where does it show itself? When we have contradiction between, for example, something that is wajib and something that is mustahab, right? Everybody loves Imam al-Hussein. Everybody loves attending the majlis of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. But a lot of times we see that people, they come, they participate in the majlis of Imam al-Hussein, mashallah, it's good. But the majlis becomes late at night, right? So they continue morning and morning and morning. Then we have this topic of masjid hopping. They go from one masjid to another masjid to another masjid, right? By the time they get home, it's about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, right? And of course, they're tired. They have to go to work. They have to go to school the next day. So they need a couple hours of sleep. So they go to sleep, and they wake up, mashallah, at 7:30 a.m. That's when the morning prayer is qada, right? So here we see a very simple example of when we have a contradiction between something that is wajib and something that is mustahab. So which one you have to take it first, right? I'm not saying to sacrifice one for another. No, you have to have both of them, right? But then when it comes to the point that you have to make a decision, you have to make sure that you have your wajibat first, and then you work on the mustahabbat, not the other way around, right? This is the very first entry point for the shaitan. The second one is, as he approaches the person, he starts belittling and making the value of committing sins and mistake less in the person's mind, right? Perhaps at the beginning he was thinking so he was so careful about not going after the sins, not thinking about the sins, right? But the shaitan comes, he uses the same strategy. He says, oh, you have done so many good things, right? So Allah is Kareem, it's okay if you look at the non-mahram once in a time, right? It's okay if you do this, if you listen to haram music, every once a week, right? Little by little, gradually and gradually. There is this interesting story. There was a family which had, 3 sons, 3 brothers. And these 3 brothers, the first and the second brother, they were mu'adhin. They were reciting the azan for their center, right? So the first brother was reciting azan for, I don't know how many years, X amount of years, right? He passes away. They go to the second brother, the younger brother. He continues, this tradition of the brothers. He becomes a muazzin of the same center. He starts reciting azan for so many years. Once he passes away, they go to the third brother, right? So they say, if you can't continue the path of your brothers and become the muazzin. He says no. They say, why? It's like, is it because something wrong? He says, no, I just don't want to become a muazzin. They insist because, he was this third brother. Everybody knew them. It was like perfect voice. They insist more. He kept on rejecting. They insist more. They keep rejecting. So they started offering money for it, for the azan. They're saying, we'll pay you like a salary, right? Not as a salary, as a hadiyah with all the exceptions that we have, to go and recite the azan for the sinner. But the third brother kept on saying, no, I'm not going to do this. Finally, they brought this, the elites of the community, these rich safids, right? And they were asking him, how come you don't want to do azan? Azan is such a nice thing. You just must have it. They have all this riwayat about it. He said, you really want to know why I do not want to become muazzin? They said, yes. Tell us, at least inform us. He told them, because I do not want to end up with the same fate that my other 2 brothers ended up with. They were like, what are you talking about? Those guys were good. They were muazzins. We would use them as a role model for a lot of youth that we have. The third brother tells them, do you really want to know what happened? I actually saw the dream of both of them. And both of them were burning in the fire of the hell. So I asked him, what happened? You guys were so good, in what we see. You were like the muazzin, you were this pious, people were looking up to you guys. What happened to how come you guys are burning in fire? They told me that, we did one mistake and we continued, to actually persist on that mistake over and over and over again. What was that mistake? In the olden times, they used to say the azan at the top of this minarets, this minaret, right? Which was like a higher height in terms of the other houses, right? So the brother was saying that, every time I went up there to recite the azan, I could not control my eyes. And I could see the houses of people, right? So every house I looked at, I could spot out the non-mahrams. And I could not control my sight. Little by little, little by little, little by little, it got me to a point that I actually hated the same azan that I was reciting, right? One simple act gradually grows to the point that it removes the entire belief of the person. The same story happened for the second brother. You see, reciting azan out loud is mustahab, right? But looking at the non-mahram is haram. We cannot sacrifice the mustahab for haram, right? We cannot sacrifice the mustahab or we cannot sacrifice the wajib for mustahab. This topic of, for example, salat, right? When we know one of the motto, one of the biggest words, biggest phrase of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein is what? Inni uhibbu salat, right? Right on the night before Ashura, when they ask for one extra night, Imam al-Hussein tells them the reason. He says, because I love praying, I love reciting the Quran. Ask him for one more night, right? So this is the reason why Imam Hussein actually fought against the Kufis and fought against the army of Yazid. So if he sacrificed these 2 for each other, that means we're going against this movement of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, right? And that's the topic, inshallah, I'm going to talk about. So what did Abu Abdullah al-Hussein do? What do we recite in the Ziyarat al-Arba'in? We say, لِيَسْتَنْغَزَكَ عِبَادَكَ مِنَ الزَّلَالَةِ وَحَيْرَةِ من الجاهلية وحيرة ضلالة. Oh Abu Abdullah, you are the one who sacrificed your blood to do what? To protect people, not only people, ibadak, basically the servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from what? From 2 things. Number 1, ignorance, jahala, and number 2, hayrat al-zalala, from this confusion of going astray, from this confusion of being diverted, right? The example of the Quran, imagine if you're being dropped down in the ocean, deep down in the ocean, when there is no light, right? And then there is wave over wave over wave. There's absolutely nothing. You cannot see anything. You cannot feel anything, to the point that if you even bring your right arm up, you cannot sense your right arm there, right? This is the confusion of dalala. Meaning that people were so misdiverted, misguided in a sense, right? That they could not understand what is haqq, what is batil, right? What is truth, what is untruth. But again, what's the topic of imamat, right? Because when we talk about imamat, we say imamat itself is what? Is the criterion of haqq and batil. The very famous hadith about Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wasalam, right? It says, Allahumma adil al-haqq ma'ahu haythadar, right? Oh Allah, make the haqq, make the truth, follow Amir al-Mu'mineen wherever he goes. Al-haqqu ma'aliyin wal-aliyu ma'al-haqq, right? As if like this topic of imamat does not get separated from the topic of truth. Now if somebody doesn't have the imamat, what's going to happen? The major criterion is going to be missed. So this move had to be made. Why? To make that awakening. To make sure that the people understand what is haqq, what is truth, right? Otherwise people just go down the hill easily. And this is not something for the Islamic nation. We had this at the time of the Pharaoh and Nabi Musa as well, right? So what Nabi Musa did, actually Pharaoh took a very interesting stand when Nabi Musa went to actually preach to Bani Israel. The Pharaoh started telling them that, hey, be careful. This Nabi Musa who had come to you, be careful of him. He's come after your religion, right? He has come to actually take away your beliefs, and he has come to make corruptions. This is what the Pharaoh was telling the Bani Israelis, right? Versus the Quran says, what does the Quran say about the Pharaoh? It was saying that he had made them so confused and so sort of mixed with the worldly matters, that he uses this term of this sheep that goes out for having some grass in the land, right? Quran uses this term for the Bani Israel of that time, meaning that the Pharaoh had worked on their minds so much that they had just become these sheep, that they would just follow whatever the Pharaoh wanted. Absolutely no way of thinking. Now bring the same concept, take it to the movement of Ashura. When Imam Hussein turns around and tells them, if you have no religion, right, at least be free, at least be hur, right? This hur has a meaning into it, right? It means to be free from all these desires. Be able to think clearly, be able to see clearly, right? Be able to make that judgment, make that differentiation between the haqq and batil, right? Because a lot of people, they say, oh, it's easy. Everybody can understand the difference between haqq and batil. It is something that Allah has embedded within the innate nature of every person, within the fitrah of every person. But that's not the proper answer, right? Why? Because of two at least reasons. Number one, that innate nature is subjected to change, meaning that it gets diluted in a sense by the actions that we do, right? And number two, the haqq and batil, it becomes more thorough as we speak about it. A lot of places we cannot understand the difference between them, right? So many ahkam we have, so many sharias that we have, that we cannot understand the reasoning behind it. It doesn't mean that it's not truth, right? It means that we do not have the mean to actually understand. And that's the whole topic of revelation, right? When we talk about revelation, we say revelation is the highest possibility of knowledge, right? That pure knowledge in which we speak of. And this topic of pure knowledge, not everybody is able to access it. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends out the Prophet and the messengers, right? Because as if they have this pure channel of knowledge, right? They get the reality as is without any changes, right? And they convey the message to us. And little by little, for us, in order if we actually follow that message, we start opening up the path for the same channel to be able to actually understand perhaps some of the reasoning behind it. Perhaps, right? But for most of the part, it comes back to the topic of obedience. This topic of obedience, when it's not there, then what's going to happen? Again, Allah knows what. So where does the questioning start? Again, when a person starts differentiating between the topic of revelation and the topic of what Imam or the Prophet understands, right? When we go back to the early history of Islam, so many criticism, not so many, at least 6 or 7 examples that I have in my mind right now, was raised against the Holy Prophet of Islam himself, right? A new Sharia would come, a new ruling would come, and when the Holy Prophet would announce it to the people, the companions of the Holy Prophet, they would go to him and they would say, what you just mentioned to us, is this something from you, or is this something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had told you? They made a difference, right? In the Shia school of thought, we say no. The Holy Prophet, whatever he says, is the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's the words that has been given to them through revelation, right? But when the question starts, what you say is different than what Allah says, that means we are making two different base of argument. That means we're looking at the Holy Prophet as just another human being. And we know what's that going to happen? Then in terms of seeking consultation, seeking advice, right? That's what they were saying. They were saying the Prophet has his opinion, I have my opinion, you have your opinion, he has his opinion. We put all the opinions together and we find out which one is the best opinion. So it started from there, right? Then it grew up to the matter of opinions. Of course, it came out to the topic of Khilafat. After Khilafat, it came to the topic of now you can actually come out and directly confront the Ahlul Bayt in what happened in the story of Farak, and after that what happened to Lady Fatima Zahra. Now bring the same concept, right? After that, it became even easier, right? So to the point that Muawiyah was easily able to actually remove Imam al-Hasan al-Mujtaba from the equation, right? Now bring the same concept and make it grow more and more and more. We come to the tragedy of Ashura. So now you have this whole base of argument which has sort of rooted and have become stronger. People easily find themselves in a stage of confronting the Ahlul Bayt, the progeny of the Prophet, right? So now who is there or what is there to actually prevent them from doing what they have done? The reason why Imam al-Hussein constantly introduced himself as the son of Rasulullah, as the son of Amir al-Mu'mineen, as the son of Lady Fatima Zahra, right? He's constantly trying to enlighten them in a sense, telling them that, look what you guys are doing. You're going, in contradiction to the source of revelation, right? Yet again, you don't realize it. Why? So many different reasons, right? So many different intentions. And some of them are very sad. Some of the people who actually joined the military of Omar Assad on the day of Ashura, they didn't go after big prizes and big monies. No, some of them were just there, as some of the reports tell us. Some of the people were just there for a handful of wheat or dates. A handful. How much is a handful? Maybe, I don't know how many grams is that, right? Some of them were there for 2 handfuls of wheat or dates. Some of the people joined the army just to get enough, sustenance or enough food for their horse to make it for the whole month, right? So these are very sad. But why is this stuff happen? And when we come to our own time, when we come to this time right now, we see the very same concept going around, right? We see that this topic of religion becomes it becomes sort of like a tool in the hands of those who actually, sort of claim to be a faithful person. It becomes a tool in the hands of the Muslims, what so-called Muslims, right? This is again another question that we have to think about it. Are we practicing Islam for the sake of ourselves, or are we practicing Islam for the sake of Allah? Right? What's the difference? When we're practicing Islam for the sake of ourselves, what happens? When we try to do something and we find out that there is something wrong with it. When we try to, for example, get a loan, when we try to do a specific job, when we want to go after a specific career, and then we find out that something is wrong with it in terms of the religious view. Immediately what we're going to do? We're going to say, oh, there should be a workaround about this. There should be a loophole for this. There should be a different ruling with this. There should be a secondary ruling for this. Or I can find a different marja for this, right? I always try to find those loopholes in order to get what I want. So when I'm going after what I want, is what I'm practicing Islam for myself. For myself, I mean for my ego, right? So Islam is there as long as I can get what I want. So God forbids, if something happens, if a calamity comes, if a test comes, if something, God forbids, right? Happens, what happens? So it goes out of the window. The religion goes just out of the door, right? Immediately when the test happens, the religion goes out of the door. A lot of questions that we make, right, is when we pray for something and when we don't get it. Or no, we do something perfectly. We do our salat, we do our saum, we do for example, everything that we have to do in time, right? And then again, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for something. Not only we don't get it, but a lot of times Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes something from us as well. Then that's when it actually really takes us off. It's like, what happened? I'm a good Muslim. How come I'm not getting what I'm asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? This goes back to this question. It's like, are we practicing Islam for the sake of our ego? Or are we practicing Islam for the sake of getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? It's completely different, right? The action seems the same, but it's completely different in terms of the intention. I mean, look at the companions. I mean, right now we sit here and then we talk about different companions of Rasulullah, different companions of Amir al-Mu'mineen, companions of Abu Abdullah Hussein, and we easily make a judgment on them, right? But when we get thorough on every single one of them, it's no kidding. They all had so many great characters, right? But despite of having all of those great characters, they had this one or two negative characters in which they did not work on. And then what happened? As they grew up more and more and more, right? At the moment that they were least expecting it, it came after them and it made them to fall down from the top of the mountains, right? As we know, the higher you go, once you fall down, the more of the punishment, the more of the pain you will suffer, right? So this is why we have to constantly remind ourselves. For example, this topic of Arba'in, this topic of Ziyarat of Arba'in, going and doing the walk, right? They say every walk that you take towards the holy shrine of Abu Abdullah Hussein equals to the sawab or the rewards of a Hajj, equals to the sawab of Umrah. How is that possible? Going to the Hajj. Hajj is wajib. One step towards the holy shrine of Abu Abdullah Hussein, right? This shows the magnificence. This shows the value of this march, of this walking, for example, right? But is this walking just a matter of walking, or is it a walking with that ma'arifah, with that knowledge, with that acknowledgement, right? When we come to Majlis of Imam al-Hussein, everybody comes here, right? And as I said, everybody tries to, shed tears for Imam al-Hussein. This is perfect. This is great, right? But is it only the matter of crying for Imam al-Hussein? Is Imam al-Hussein becoming going to a higher stage of heaven if we cry for him? No, he's, mashallah, he's at the highest positions of heaven as we speak of, right? So why do we cry for him? Why do we mourn for him, right? Is it for him? Or no, there is something in the tears in which it gets shed for Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, right? We say it is those tears that it has to actually reform the human nature. It has to cleanse the soul. It has to move the soul. We can easily take a look back in our lifetime. How many years we have lived? 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, all the way to 100 years, right? What difference, have we actually noticed from this Arba'in, all right, from the last Arba'in that we witnessed, from this Muharram, or from the last Muharram till this Muharram, from the Muharram of 2 years ago till this Muharram? What changes have we made? Are we the very same person that we just come, for example, for Muharram and Arba'in, and we try to mourn for Abu Abdullah Hussein, and once the end of the Safar comes, we go back to our normal routines? Or no, every time we think about this tragedy of Karbala, every time we think of Imam Hussein, we try to make sure that we make one slight positive change in ourselves, right? How can we become or actually get closer to the companions of Imam Hussein? We know the companions of Imam Hussein were one of a kind, right? How Imam introduces them to us. He says, you guys are the most loyal and the most one-of-a-kind companions that everybody can possibly imagine. And the history of humankind will not see people like you guys. But does that mean that the path is not open? We cannot have the same characters of those companions? No, the path is open, right? If it was impossible, right, Imam would not set them as an example, right? The way setting an example works in Islam is not by telling you directly in a lot of sense, right? They actually try to give you the perfect example in a way that you find eagerness and enthusiasm towards that specific goal. And then you go for it. You work for it, right? We cannot just sit and start praying, right? They say, what about a farmer who doesn't plant anything, who doesn't water his land, who doesn't do anything in his land, and he sits in his home and he starts praying, oh Allah, give me blessings, and give me blessings. Is that going to work? No. You have to make the move, and you have to make the right move on the right path with all of your power, right? And of course, at the same time, you cannot become arrogant about it. right? So this whole topic of Imam al-Hussein's move, right, to enlighten people, to remove this ignorance, right, to help them, to support them, to come out from this confusion, it still is happening today. That's why we say this message of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein is a universal message. Why? It's not only for the year 61 Hijrah, right? When it happened, it actually looked at the people from his past, the time of Imam al-Hussein, and the future. Every role model, every example, every word of Imam al-Hussein, when we look at it today, even today, right, we see that it has teachings for us. Not only for us, the Shias, no, for all the Muslims, and as I mentioned, for even the Christians, for the Jews, even for those who do not believe in any form of religion, those who call themselves humanitarians, right? Even they can benefit from the moves and the words and the wisdom of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, right? And we see this in the different companions of Imam al-Hussein at that time. As you all know, the companions of Imam al-Hussein, they were not all from the same bag, right? Some of them were well known, like Habib ibn Muzahir. They were well known, they were great companions of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam al-Hassan al-Mujtaba, and Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. But some of them, no, they were unknown completely. For example, Joan, right? He was the servant of Abu Zar. Then he was passed on to Imam al-Ali, then from Imam al-Ali to Imam al-Hassan al-Mujtaba, from him to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. He was this older, uncle in a sense, right? And he was a slave. And all he did was repairing the weapons. He actually didn't know how to fight. This is where it becomes interesting. He didn't know how to fight. Imagine on the day of Ashura, right? Someone comes up to you if you're in charge of the army of Imam al-Hussein, right? Usually how do we plan? We try to make sure we put our best, warriors, in front, right? We try to be use the strategies in a way to win the battle, right? So now in the middle of the battle, someone comes up to you, right? Who's way old enough, he probably cannot walk that easily. He probably has to use a cane or a stick to walk, right? And then he doesn't even know how to fight. But he comes up to you and he asks you to give you permission to go and enter the battlefield. What would you do? You would say, the battle, first of all, jihad has been removed from the elders, the elders and the kids and the women, right? So fiqhi point, there is no ruling for you to actually participate in the jihad. So you are free to go. What exactly what Imam al-Hussein actually told Joan. It's like, you are free to go. You don't have to fight this battle. This battle is not yours. Right? But what does he say? He says, oh, Imam al-Hussein, you want me to be part of the family when everything is good, everything is sound and secure. But when there's stuff start going downhill, you want me to give up and you want me to leave you guys behind? Right? And then we have it that he started throwing himself at Imam al-Hussein's feet just to get the permission to go to the battlefield. So why? What is he thinking? Basically, in terms of the technical terms, he cannot do any good for the army of Imam al-Hussein, right? He doesn't know how to fight. What would he come and insist on getting the permission to go to the battlefield? On the contrary, we have another companion of Imam al-Hussein, right, who makes a condition when he wants to fight for Imam al-Hussein. Abdullah ibn Zahaq, he says, oh Imam al-Hussein, I will fight along you as long as I see my fighting benefits you. The minute I feel that my fighting has no more benefit for you, let me be free to leave. Right? Imam al-Hussein says, okay, whatever conditions you want to put, that's fine with me. So we have it, he actually starts fighting on the day of Ashura, and he continues fighting till very close to the afternoon of Ashura, when all the companions were getting slaughtered, right? Then he looks around and he sees that there's no one else left. So he comes up to Imam al-Hussein and he tells him, oh, Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, remember the conditions that I made? I'm here to actually catch that condition now. I'm here to actually leave. Imam al-Hussein says, you made the condition, I'm the man of my words, if you want to leave, go ahead, leave. But right now you cannot leave this, this area of Karbala because we've been surrounded by the army of Umar Assad. How are you going to get out of or break through the army? He tells them, oh, Imam al-Hussein, I have hidden my horse in one of the tents. I'm going to use that one to actually break through the army of Umar Assad. Because in one of the attacks, one of the strategies that they had, they actually attacked the horses and the camels, right? To make sure that Imam al-Hussein's companions didn't have any horse to actually ride on, right? So he had hidden his horse in one of the tents, right? Just for this, given time. Imam al-Hussein tells him, okay, if you want to go, go. And he goes, right? He runs away. He breaks through the army of Umar Assad. A group of people follow him, right? the first village that he gets into, the villagers, they were like, family members with him. So they started, intermediating between him and those guards. And little by little, they started like pushing away the guards. So he actually goes out and, he goes out safe and secure, right? And he becomes one of the narrator, one of the reporters of tragedy of Karbala. But look at the intention, look at the mentality. One who is a fighter, right, makes a condition that I'm going to fight as long as I benefit you, thinking in terms of this, worldly thinking. The other one who's a servant, that nobody expects anything from him, right? He comes up at that age without knowing how to fight, and he says, oh, Imam was saying, I would like to like sacrifice my life for you, and I would not take a no for an answer. So it's interesting, we have it when he enters, this Joan, when he enters the battlefield, right? Every person who entered the battlefield, they had this recitation of a poem, which we call it Rajas, right? What is Rajas? Basically is how they would introduce themselves when they enter the battlefield, right? So all of these heavy champs, like Habib ibn Muzahir, Muslim and Muslim ibn Osaj, and all of these like, big shots, right? They had specific Rajas, right? So it was like as if it was their, identity card. The minute they would enter the battlefield, they would start reciting the same poem. But Joan, he's an unknown guy, right? Nobody knows him. When he enters the battlefield, what does he say? He doesn't say, I'm Joan, the son of such and such and such and such. No. He says, my Amir is Hussein. فَنَعْمَ الْأَمِيرِ. And how great of an Amir is Abu Abdullah Hussein. He just introduces himself with the connection that he has to Abu Abdullah Hussein. Meaning this is the higher level of intellect. It's not just running cons and pros. It's not just looking at this in a sense of what's in it for me. No. All they could see was the life of Abu Abdullah Hussein. Assalamu alayka ya Abu Abdullah. وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفدائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. On this day, the caravan of Abu Abdullah Hussein approaches the city of Sham. Later on, they ask Imam al-Sajjad, out of all the places you guys been to, where was the most difficult one? Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salatu wasalam raised his voice and he said 3 times, Ash-Sham, Ash-Sham, Ash-Sham. It was the Sham that was the most difficult of all the places that we went to. Imagine the caravan all being filled with women and children, all being put on the camels without any saddles. They have gone through so many things, they have seen so many things, they have been beat up so many times. Going through city from another city, through the city to another city. In every city, people were looking at them as if they were foreigners. People were looking at them as they were non-Muslims. People were pointing at them. They were looking right there in their faces. And these are the progeny of the Rasulullah, the ones who had never seen a na-mahram, nor a na-mahram had ever seen their faces. Going after all of these places, going one by one, finally they had reached the boundaries and the outskirts of the city of Sham. But that Mal'un doesn't make it easy. He told the caravan that, to make them stop at the boundary of the city of Sham. They hold the caravan down. They ask why. They said because the decoration of the city is not finished. They're putting up the decoration. They're calling out the singers. They're calling out the musicians because we have a celebration to do.
One of the companions says, I was going through Sham, I was going for Jerusalem. As I was passing through the Sham, I noticed that's what a nice city it is to live. It was so flourished, it was so green, and I noticed that they had all this decoration up. So I started asking to see what's the reason behind it. Is there an Eid coming up that we don't know that the people of Sham have it? Two people were talking. I approached them and I asked them, what's the reason behind all of these decorations? They told me, don't you know? Are you out of town? He says, yes, I'm from this city. They told him, well, we are expecting the holy head of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein is being sent to Sham from city of Kufa as a present. Immediately this companion of Rasulullah says, what do you talk about? You're telling me that the head of the grandson of Rasulullah is being sent to Sham as a present, and you guys are actually celebrating for this? Are you guys afraid that the earth is going to swallow the entire people? Aren't you guys afraid that the sky is going to drop blood, is going to shed blood on you guys? Then he says, I immediately ride on my horse and I asked them where the caravan is entering the city. They told me they're entering the city from the gates of the watch. I went to the gate of watch and I saw these flags coming into the city one by one, one by one, one by one. I sharpened my eyes and I looked and I saw this rider. He was holding this spear in his hand. But on top of the spear, there was this head, there was this beloved head, as bright as the moon. It has the most resemblance and example to the Holy Prophet of Islam. The minute I laid on it, I was like as if it's the head of the Holy Prophet of Islam on top of the spear. He walked in and he was walking so proudly and so arrogantly. He went straight to the palace of Yazid and he was reciting this poem. O Yazid, I have brought you the head of the most noble person on earth, the person who has the best family, the best father, and the best mother. So go ahead and fill up my pockets with silver and gold. O Yazid, I have brought you the head of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. We have it in the history that Yazid told him, if you knew him that well, how come you went for this? He said, because I wanted the rewards. So Yazid says, your only rewards is to actually have your head beheaded as well. So he beheaded Yazid. This companion of Rasulullah says, I approached the caravan. I noticed that some of the women were on the camels. I approached one of them and I asked him, what's your name? She says, I'm Sukaina. I'm the daughter of Imam al-Hussein. He says, I'm the companion of Rasulullah. Can I do anything for you? She told me, oh, companion of Rasulullah, I ask you for two things. Just pay some money to the people who are taking the heads to go forward, to go like and make a separation between them and the caravan. Because the more they are within the caravan, the more people are staring at us. Just ask them to move forward a little bit so people will focus on the heads instead of the women of the caravan. So I went to those who were holding up the hairs and the spears, and I started giving them 400 dinars and asked them if you guys can move a little bit faster just to make sure that they get separated from the caravan. But just imagine if you're on the caravan of this journey, the minute you look up, you see the heads of the beloved one. The minute you look up, you see the heads of Abul Fazl Abbas. The minute you look up, you see the head of Ali and Al-Akbar. The minute you look up, you see the head of Ali and Al-Asqar. The minute you look up, you see the head of Habib ibn Muzahir. For how many days, for how many nights, every time you looked up, you saw the head of those beloved one on top of his spears. Now finally, you get to the city of Sham. But let me talk about a very special character named Baby Ruqayya. She's a 3-year-old. They say in psychology, when you're 3, when you want something, you really want it. When you don't want something, you really don't want it. You don't take a no for an answer. At the middle of the night, she started crying. And as we all know, when a 3-year-old starts crying, people around her start to cry as well. So she started crying. By her cries, all the women and children started crying as well. For so many days, they were not allowed to actually mourn for Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. But this was their first chance to actually mourn for Imam al-Hussein. Lady Zainab went to Lady Ruqayya and asked her, oh, my dear one, what is wrong? She said, oh, my auntie, I saw a dream. I saw my father, I saw Imam al-Hussein in my dream. And he came to me and he told me, Ta'al, Ta'al. He told me, oh, my daughter, come to me, come to me. He was so nice to me. He was smiling at me. Oh, Lady Zainab, oh, auntie, where is my father? How come he hasn't come back from the trip you told me? Lady Zainab started crying and all the women and children started crying. The sound went up, went to the Dar al-Amara. That Yazid woke up from the sleep. He asked, what's the reason behind all of this crying? They say it's a 3-year-old of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein making a big scene. He told them, that's easy, just send the head of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein to her. They put the head of Abu Abdullah Hussein on the tray. They put a cover on it, and they brought it for this 3-year-old. Imagine if it's a baby, 3-year-old baby, and they put this tray in front of her with a cover over the head of Imam al-Hussein. First she looked at it, she was puzzled. She didn't know what is inside of that tray. She looked at the cover and says, I didn't ask for any food. Who wants food at this time? The guard immediately answered her, no, this is not the food, this is what you asked for. And then he removed the cover of the tray. The minute Lady Ruqayya saw the beloved head of Imam al-Hussein, she reached out her tiny hands to the head of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. We have it in the reports that she embraced the head of Imam al-Hussein. She put it on her lap and she started petting on the hair of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. She started talking to her father. She started reporting everything she had seen. Oh, father, where have you been? Oh, Baba, where have you been? Oh, Baba, who has done this to you? Who has done this to your face? Who has done this to your beard? Oh, Baba, who has cut off your weights? Oh, Baba, who has done this to your teeth? Oh, Baba, what happened to your Ammama? As she's talking, as if like she's puzzled to even recognize her own father. We have it in the reports. She reaches over and she gives the kiss to the lips of Abu Abdullah Hussein for one last time. And then we have it that the head falls on one side, Lady Ruqayya on one side. The whole women and children started mourning again and crying again. They're calling the ghassala, they're calling a woman to actually give a wash to Lady Ruqayya. And once the ghassala comes up to give a wash for Lady Ruqayya, she all of a sudden pulls back. She says, no, I'm not going to give a ghusl to this baby. All of the women, they say, why? Is there something wrong? She says, I'm not going to give a ghusl to this baby because I don't know what kind of a disease does she have. Lady Zainab comes in and she says, oh lady, there is no disease here. This 3-year-old has been hit so many times that all of her skin has turned bruised and black. The spots that you see is not the spots of disease. These are the spots of getting hit by these guards, by these warriors. And what a warrior hand is going to do to the face and the body of a 3-year-old once it hits her. La ilaha illallah, inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أن ينقلب منقلبون. اللهم إنا نسألك وندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم إلهي بحق محمد وعلي وفاطمة والحسن والحسين وتسعة المعصومين من ذرية الحسين يا الله 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 يا رحمن يا رحيم يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك واكفنا يا قاضي الحاجات ويا كافي المحمات إنك على كل شيء قدير. O Allah, hasten the appearance of our Imam Zaman. O Allah, give us the tawfiq and chance to be part of his true companions. O Allah, forgive all of our past sins and forgive all of our past ones. O Allah, protect our future generations. O Allah, continue guiding us on the Sirat al-Mustaqim. O Allah, give us the tawfiq of the ziyarat of Ahlul Bayt in this dunya and their shafa'a intercession in the hereafter. O Allah, put our life, the life of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad, and put our end, the end of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Sallu ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad.
Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Hussein, Hussein, King of martyrs. Hussein, Hussein has been slaughtered. Hussein, Hussein, true believers. Hussein, Hussein are his weepers. Hussein, Hussein, King of martyrs. Hussein, Hussein has been slaughtered. Hussein, Hussein, true believers. Hussein, Hussein are his weepers. Here I lie, Ya Mawla, run to me before I die. Oh, my uncle, there's my blood. Oh, my uncle, there's my blood. Let me see you one last time as I'm leaving, going further. I am seeing your murder. I am seeing your murder.
I'm a martyr sliced for you, to be sacrificed for you. Oh, there will be pains for you when no one remains for you. Hussein, Hussein, King of martyrs, Hussein, Hussein has been slaughtered. Hussein, Hussein, true believers, Hussein, Hussein are his weepers. Hussein, Hussein, King of martyrs, Hussein, Hussein has been slaughtered. Hussein, Hussein, true believers, Hussein, Hussein are his weepers. Why the pain, Ya Hussein, while we die upon this plain? Where's Muhammad? Where is Qasim? Where's Muhammad? Where is Qasim? Your soldiers so young have been slain. All the loved ones that you've carried, all the young ones you've buried, all the young ones you've buried. Now you've witnessed all your sons swear to you by the Quran, we will serve you on and on. Hussein, Hussein, Hussein John. Hussein, Hussein, King of martyrs. Hussein, Hussein has been slaughtered. Hussein, Hussein, true believers. Hussein, Hussein are his weepers. Hussein, Hussein, King of martyrs. Hussein, Hussein has been slaughtered. Hussein, Hussein, true believers. Hussein, Hussein are his weepers. Ya Allah.
السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي أيها المجتبى، السلام عليك يا حسين بن علي يا أبا عبد الله، السلام عليك يا علي بن الحسين أيها الزين العابدين، السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي أيها الباقر، السلام عليك يا جعفر بن محمد أيها الصادق، السلام عليك يا موسى بن جعفر أيها الكاظم، السلام عليك يا علي بن موسى أيها الرضا، السلام عليك يا علي بن محمد أيها الجواد، السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي أيها الهادي، السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي أيها العسكري، السلام عليك يا صاحب الزمان، العجل 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 جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. Let's remember all the marhumin and marhumat, mu'minin and mu'minat by reciting aloud salawat followed by Surah Al-Fatiha.
Assalamu alaikum. Reminder, inshallah, programs are continuing on tomorrow night until Monday. So tomorrow night until Monday, programs are continuing on for Arba'in. And inshallah, also on Saturday is the Peace Walk in San Francisco. For more information, please see the website. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. If you are interested in donating blood, there's a registration form on the website. Please, you have to sign up ahead of time. So if you are interested in donating blood, please go ahead and fill out that form. Inshallah, we'll see you there.